Brandon Innis bet on himself this offseason, and the sacrifice is already paying off.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Jay Stevens. During today's show, we will discuss why it was important for Ryan Day to lean on Brandon Innis and Jeremiah Smith when hiring Cortez Hankton, as well as what Brandon Innis wants to do to help younger receivers. But first, this offseason was very big for Brandon Innis, and it's only just beginning to where he got the honor of being an Iron Buckeye for winter workouts. Spring practice is just underway, and he is striving to be a big Buckeye receiver to end his Buckeye career very strong. While trying to do that, he had to make a sacrifice this offseason because he wanted to be an Iron Buckeye for his work during winter workouts. And you may think, hey, that's expected. He's a guy been there for 3 or 4 years. He has what it takes. Yes, but he had a sacrifice to get that honor. There's a rule at Ohio State that if you go on the Buckeye cruise, you can't be an Iron Buckeye. Does it seem unfair? Maybe, but that's a rule that's been put in place by Ryan Day, and the players know that. The players know that if they go on the cruise, which is, one, it's a fun vacation, but also it's for a great cause, you're doing good for not just Ohio State, but for the bettering of people. But being an Iron Buckeye is huge. There are only 4 players at Ohio State that were Iron Buckeyes for the work during winter workouts: Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Innis, Garrett Stover, and Jalen McClain. And that sacrifice that Ennis made to bet on himself was huge because he could have made the sacrifice and not gotten to be an Iron Buckeye. He could have just said, hey, I'm staying here. I'm not going on a cruise. And maybe he didn't do everything. Maybe he didn't push himself to the limits that he needed to push them to get that high honor, but he did. And for Brandon Innis, that sacrifice is just the beginning of this year and just the beginning of him becoming a better player overall. He's been a solid player. He's been criticized. Y'all know how I think about him as a returner. I don't think he was ever the best kickoff or punt returner for Ohio State ever at all in his time there. But Ryan Day kept putting him out there. Ryan Day kept saying, look, you're loyal to me. You're loyal to the program. We are going to reward you by putting you back there to return kickoffs and punts. And when Lorenzo Styles returned that kickoff last year, I started to think, wow, maybe he should get more return opportunities to return. And then he ran the 4.2740. I'm like, my goodness, this guy should definitely get more opportunities, or he should have, but he didn't. With Caleb Downs a couple years ago, returned that punt against IU for a touchdown. I'm in my head thinking, let that man return punts. But Ryan Day said no. He kept leaning on Ennis. I think it may have been more of a way to get Ennis to play better, because if you take a guy out or if you give him a smaller role, you might not get his best when he's on the field. Well, for Ennis, you're going to get better from him this year because of the sacrifices he is making right now. Yes, I've been critical of Brandon Innis. I've not been the biggest fan of him as a receiver. I thought there may have been some younger guys that would have been better options to play. But no, Mylan Graham maybe, but he never put it all together. Quincy Porter got hurt last year. And so if he was a guy that could have played a little bit better or got more snaps late in the season, the injury got in the way. And so when it comes to Innis, he's one of 2 returning starters from last year's team. Carnell Tate is gone. JJ is still there. It's JJ and Innis. There's a couple of transfers that are coming in that are going to play. You have Chris Henry Jr. That's the core. Those are the guys. All those are the guys you're looking at. Innis knows if he makes a sacrifice now, if he works harder, if he tests himself and proves that he has what it takes to be an Iron Buckeye, then the transfers and Devin McEwen from UTSA and Kyle Parker from LSU, those guys are going to look at number one and say, if he can do it, if he is the standard of receivers at Ohio State, then I have to make sure I match or maybe even exceed his play. Now, speaking of Ennis, I haven't talked about this in a while on this show because, well, I mean, it's winter workouts and the spring ball. But looking ahead to the fall when Ryan Day announces who is going to wear the Blocko jersey, you have to think Ennis is going to be in the conversation, and he should. He's a 4-year guy, multi-year captain. He was on the leadership committee his sophomore year when he wasn't a captain. So he's done a lot of things as a leader to display what it means to be a Buckeye. But also in the conversation is Jeremiah Smith, also Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Ray Matthews Jr., Carson Hinzman. There's a few of the guys that are in the running to be previous conversation, to be to wear the block out jersey. The one conversation with one topic, one thought about this, excuse me, when it comes to the being the block out jersey recipient, you don't have to be a starter. Cam Babb got it in 2022, that season, maybe 2023. 2022 season. My wife and I ended up going to the shoe for that game. With the game he scored, he caught his first pass and scored his first touchdown. And it was my first time in the shoe, so I was excited. I'd never been there before. There's a picture of us probably on my personal Instagram, and you can see just me lighting up like a kid in a Christmas in a candy shop because I loved being able to be there in the shoe. I'd been really dreamed about being there. Once I was there, I was like, man, I got to get back. I got to get back. Not going this year, at least not right now for the spring game. The plan is to get back in the future, my wife and I, and then bring the kids along down the road. But we got to get back there solo trip before the two youngsters we have at the house join us. But that year was very important for Cam Babb to get that honor, but he didn't play. He dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career that kind of plagued him in a way that he wasn't able to get on the field. He still was a guy that ended up getting hired by Ohio State's athletic department upon graduating from the Ohio State University. So, no, you don't have to be a starter to be able to get that jersey. But the guys in the running, the only guys I think should be in the conversation, are going to be starters this year. Jeremiah Smith, to me, is going to break the mold, and he's going to be the blocker recipient this year because he's just that different. He's been an Iron Buckeye 6 out of 7 times that he could have won the award. He didn't get it his first year, first time in winter workouts, but every other time after that, he's been an Iron Buckeye. He has been a starter since day one. He's breaking Ohio State records. He's going to go down as one of the best players in Ohio State football history. Why not give number 4 the Blocko jersey before he's done? Now, the guy that I think is number 2 in this conversation is Carson Hinzman, who gets glossed over, looked past. Some of y'all are saying he should have just gone to the NFL. I heard an Ohio State writer say that and on a podcast, and I'm thinking, no, I don't think Hinzman should have gone to the NFL. I don't think he should have transferred. I personally think that he should have just stuck with the decision that he made. Stay at Ohio State. It's the best opportunity for him to play at a high level, be playing against the best in practice and on a college football Saturday, and be able to be a great football player, to be the best he can be. But to me, Hinzman's path is a little bit different because he was a starter. He lost his spot to Seth McLaughlin. He got thrown back into the starting lineup at a new position at left guard, moved back to center because McLaughlin got hurt, came back to start last year, and the next thing you know, he's starting once again. So he had a weird path where he was a starter, not starting again at a new position. All of a sudden, he's starting back-to-back years at his original position, and he's a leader on the offensive line. If the offensive line is going to be better, it's going to be because of Hinzman. His path is different. He's persevered. He's fought. He's kept his mind right. That's why he's in the running, to me, in the conversation to get that jersey. I think third, you can have an argument for Kenyatta Jackson Jr., an argument for Jermaine Matthews Jr. All those guys, they can have an argument to get that award. But to me, it has to be JJ. JJ, and then Hinzman. Hinzman. Ennis is in that too. But to me, it has to go to JJ. He's that special. Talk about Ennis sacrificing. JJ sacrificed too. All these guys are sacrificing in not just on the field, but off the field, their nutrition, their workouts. They're doing everything needed to stay at the top of their game. And while trying to stay at the top of their game, Brandon Innis is trying to help some young Buckeye receivers be at the top of their game as he is trying to follow in the footsteps of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Buka to influence the young receivers to keep the standard high. We'll dive into his mindset and why he is doing it after the break. This is Locked on Buckeyes.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. All 4 number 1 seeds, UConn, UCLA, Texas, and South Carolina, have completely dominated the opening rounds of the NCAA tournament. UConn rolled with a 98-45 victory over Syracuse behind AZ Fudd, who had a 34-point explosion, while South Carolina has been led by Joyce Edwards coming off a 23-point game. UCLA leaned on Lauren Betts with a 35-point performance in an 87-68 win over Oklahoma State. And Texas advanced comfortably with a 40-point show from Madison Booker. And now we're headed to the Sweet 16. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
This episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The tournament is here. One of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets. It's nonstop action from tip to final cut down. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's the best part. You get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, or even same game parlays for bigger potential payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new, different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit fanduel.com to get started today. Once again, make sure you visit fanduel.com to get started and signed up today. That's fanduel.com to get in on the action. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Get your first month of the Everyday Club for free when you use code MARCH. You unlock ad-free episodes and entry into our private listener group chat where I'm hanging out daily. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to claim your free month. As many of you can see that are watching the video portion of this show on the YouTube, I am not in my normal setup in the office. We are in the hospital right now. Everything is going fine. Things are going better. There was a medical emergency. 3 of us are in the room right now, and things are getting a lot better. And so a little delayed on the Wednesday show. There was actually a recording issue with that one, too. That was supposed to come out earlier. But the belief is that we'll get back to regularly scheduled shows very, very soon with the microphone and sound that we get on the show Monday through Friday, sometimes twice a day. Had to go back to the old wired headset because, well, we're in a different spot and we're doing things with the backup system right now. And thinking of backup system and systems in general, there's a system at Ohio State where old receivers help young receivers be the best players they can be, striving to keep the standard high, working every day to make sure every recruit knows when you come to Ohio State, there is a certain standard. It doesn't matter if you're the starter in Jeremiah Smith or if you're a guy a year ago with Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter that are really talented but are working to put it all together. Everybody is striving to keep that standard high. And while Brenton Innis is sacrificing right now to earn the title of being an Iron Buckeye, he's also focused on helping the young receivers at Ohio State kind of show them what it takes to be successful at Ohio in the Scarlet and Gray. He not only wants to keep the standard high, but he had great examples in Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Buka, a couple of guys that taught him what it means to be a Buckeye. They taught him how to work out, how to watch the film, how to run routes, how to go through the echo of the whistle, A to B +2, every single time you're on the field. They showed him how it's done. Now, Ennis was a highly recruited player out of South Florida. He is a guy, I think it was John Garcia Jr. I think it was back when John was doing recruiting shows with us. But John and I talked about him. If it wasn't John, it was Brian Smith, and they both do great work covering recruiting. We talked about Ennis, the best fit for him, why he's coming to Ohio State, why getting an Ohio State offer at receiver is different. And so we dissected it. But dissecting it is one thing. Getting to Ohio State, being a big-time player, being a high recruit is huge, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a guy that's going to be an elite player in the shoot. It doesn't mean anything at all. I'm not trying to throw any shade or knock the player I'm about to mention, but Julian Fleming was a highly recruited player out of the East Coast. I think he's from Pennsylvania. Highly recruited. But when you saw him on the field at Ohio State, many people were looking at him like, are you really a 5-star recruit? Did somebody just kind of like throw some money under the table to boost your rating? Because what we're seeing on the field doesn't match your recruiting ranking. It doesn't match the things we were told about you. It doesn't match anything. It's not Julian Fleming's fault. He just wasn't a great receiver. That's just what he never was. We went to Penn State his final year in Columbus, and when he was doing it, sitting here thinking, he just as bad at Penn State as he was at Ohio State. And so Fleming was talented, but never put it all together. He had some older guys show him the ropes, but some guys just can't do it. But when Ennis wants to help the younger receivers, it's kind of like paying it forward. It's kind of just doing what you need to do as a veteran, as a leader, to help the younger generation or the next guy so they can also keep the standard high when you're gone. When Marvin Harrison Jr. showed him some stuff and Emeka Buka helped him out, it was very huge. And I say this all the time. I think about it when it's talking about NBA players, and I listen to Club 520. I watched Jeff Teague actually play in high school. My high school was probably 30 to 40 minutes away from his. I remember the memory at high school when our high school upset his. It was the one and only time I watched a basketball game and rushed the court. My buddy Alex was on the team. Stevie Hedrick was on the team. I forget the final sequence. My brother could tell me, like he knows, but Ohio State. LC won the game. They beat Pike, upset Pike, massive upset. We rushed the court, the one and only time we did it. I don't even know if you can do that at our high school anymore. I have no idea. Security is a lot higher than it used to be. And, I mean, we kids trying to have fun, sit on the front row, having a good old time at a basketball game. But Jeff Teague on that podcast, and a lot of other NBA players will say, when they get to the league, there were vets that helped him along the way. Think about Charles Barkley when he got to the Philadelphia 76ers from Auburn. Charles Barkley was a hefty human being. He was larger, I don't want to say larger than life, but he was known as a round amount of rebound, and he was a really good player, Hall of Famer. But when he got to the 76ers, he didn't know what it meant to be a pro. He didn't know how to dress. He didn't know how to eat. He didn't know how to take care of his body. There were so many things that are big details to talk about. There were also small details that we don't really discuss that he needed to learn while he was there in Philadelphia. He talked about how Dr. J taught him how to dress, took him out, helped him get some clothes that helped him look like a pro, not a college kid that's a junior, just trying to get by, go from practice to class. Moses Malone helped him with his body. They made a goal. They set out goals and said, hey, big fella, we want to get you from, say he was, I don't know what his weight was. Let's just say he was 305. By this time on the calendar, we want you down to 295. Okay, great. You got it. At this time on the calendar, 285, 275. Charles Barkley details and says at some point they ended up getting him so light, trying to see where his proper weight was going to be for him to be successful and to be a dog on the court. He got so light at one point. They want to put a number on it to say where he was, but he was so light, his production on the court went down, not up. Now you think lighter would be better? No, it went down instead of up. So Moses Malone says, oh, no, we got to get your weight back up. Maybe called him big fella. I don't know. But he said you got to get your weight back up. They got him back up to his weight, maybe around 250. The rest is history. He's a Hall of Famer. He was on the Dream Team in 92. And I'll say this now on the show. Many of y'all may not like this. The Dream Team beats the Redeem Team. I'll leave it there. But that moment for Charles Barkley was very, very big because he needed those older guys to show him how it's done. It's the same thing for Brandon Ennis. These youngsters, Chris Henry Jr., Jerquaden Guilford, a couple of guys that are on the top of my head. Phillip Bell is another one. He can show them how it's done and just say, hey, young buck, do what I say. And what I do. Not do what I say, not what I do, because it's how sometimes we live life. Do what I say, but my actions don't follow what I say. So do what I say, not what I do. No. He's saying do what I say and do what I do. And let the chips fall where they may. Speaking of let the chips fall where they may, Ryan Day was very, very intentional when looking at certain players to lean on when trying to replace Brian Hartline, and Ryan Day leaned on Brandon Innis, Jeremiah Smith, and Carnell Tate before hiring Cortez Hankton. That was a very important move for Ryan Day and the right move. We'll discuss why that was the right move by Ryan Day after the break. This is Locked on Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood Prediction Markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood Prediction Markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and clear swaps trading involves significant risk. It is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit. They'll get your job the premium status it deserves at indeed.com/podcast. Just go to indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Thank you all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes, for making this show your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. I apologize for the bang during that ad read. My phone fell on the ground. I'm looking to get that here after the show is over. As my phone fell on the ground, I was thinking ahead to this topic as we close out this show about Ryan Day doing something he did a couple of years ago that actually helped the Buckeyes win a national championship in 2024. I'll dive into that a little bit later because it ties into Ryan Day's philosophy when it comes to certain hires. Not all, but certain hires. Ryan Day needed to replace Brian Hartline. He knew that there would be other receivers coaches around the country that would flock to be at Ohio State. There could have been some guys in the NFL, maybe the CFL, all around the world. People look at this job and saying, I want to coach there. But when you are getting application after application thrown your way, you know we have to have a well-oiled machine as far as a process to figure out the candidates we want to ditch, the candidates we want to pursue, who do we want to interview, and then once you get some finalists, you want to see, do these guys mesh with the players that are currently in the room? And Ryan Day leaned on Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, and Brandon Ennis to make sure Cortez Hankton was the right guy to hire for this team. Maybe seeing Jay like, why in the world would Ryan Day want to lean on some guys that are in the room when they aren't the decision makers? They aren't paying Cortez Hankton's paycheck. They aren't doing anything but playing the football, wearing the Ohio State's colors, and then eventually going off to the NFL. Why would he want to lean on those guys? Respect. They are the ones that help keep the standard high at Ohio State. And if Cortez Hankton doesn't get the vote of approval of those three guys, he might not be the right guy. Carnell Tate being in this conversation is huge. He's about to be a first-round pick, potential top 10 pick. That's how good he is. He didn't have to include him in here either, but these three guys are also the three starters from last year's team. So it's not just a first-round pick. These were the three starters, the three best receivers at Ohio State. And they know what Hartline meant to the Buckeyes. They knew Hartline's way of doing things. And they know what their eyes, they know when we're talking to somebody, if that coach has it or if he doesn't. Right there, Matt has a lot of respect for all three of these guys. Ennis, to me, is a super loyal player. I'm not saying he's the Jack Sawyer of this year's team for Ryan Day, but it might be that kind of relationship. Remember Jack Sawyer, Ryan Day, after the Buckeyes beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl, 80-plus yards on the right sideline, scoop and score. He forced a fumble on his former college teammate. Next thing you know, homie scooped that thing up, and he was gone. Ryan Day and Jack Sawyer had some moments where it was almost like a father-son connection. Now, it's not father-son literally, but it was kind of like that Jack Sawyer was the first commitment under Ryan Day when Ryan Day was promoted from OC to full-time head coach of the Buckeyes. And it was very clear that their connection was different. Well, that same thing to me is kind of what Ennis. I don't think it's the same as far as how close the two are. I don't even think it's like Cade McDonald, Matt Patricia. That's a little bit of a different connection because those two guys, my goodness, they love each other. But Ennis, though, a super loyal Ryan Day guy. And when Ennis is in this conversation, the other two guys are locked to be first round picks. Ennis is striving to be that. And I don't think Ennis would get the vote of approval for a receivers coach if he didn't believe that was a guy to help him accomplish that goal of being a first round pick in the National Football League. I don't believe that at all. So Ryan Day is big on utilizing the guys in the room to make hires to make sure that he knows what the players need, what the players demand. But also, Ryan Day's done this before. Remember 2024, 2023 season, early 2024 in January, the team up north won the national championship. Shortly after that, many Ohio State fans were rejoicing. I'm like, what are y'all so happy about? That team just won the Natty. Well, Quinshon Judkins just announced he was transferring from Ole Miss to Ohio State. And in that process for Judkins to leave the Rebels to be a Buckeye, he contacted Ryan Day. Said, hey, coach, I want to be a Buckeye. Ryan Day didn't, I'm sure he called to the people. He called Travion Henderson. Said, hey, Travion, Quinshon's thinking about coming here. What do you think? Travion said, hey, coach, I'm going to get back to you. Let me think about this for a little bit. Travion got back to Ryan Day, and he said, coach, let's do it. Now, in my head, when I heard that conversation for the very first time, I am thinking, Travion Henderson knows he's about to have less touches. He's going to have less yards, going to have less touchdowns. Yards per carry might go up, but there are going to be people out there that don't look at the details. They say, oh, 1,000-yard season, that's not amazing, but it is. Less touchdowns, that's a problem. Yards per carry is up. Why? Because he's splitting reps with the guy that's going to ultimately get drafted to the National Football League, and they both were 1,000-yard receivers, 1,000-yard rushers. And so Ryan Day leaning on the players that he trusts. Granted, these are 3 and 4 year guys. He's not leaning on someone that's just a first year guy. When he is leaning on Smith, Innis, and Tate before hiring Cortez Hankton, going into now Tate just finished year 3, Jeremiah Smith heading into year 3, Innis heading into year 4. Think about that for a second when comparing it to what happened a couple of years ago. Henderson was heading into year 4. Judkins was entering year 3. So you're having guys that aren't first and second year guys. They're seasoned, they're weathered, they know what college football is all about. If Ryan Day values the experience that these guys have at playing college football, especially at Ohio State, it helps them make the right hires and helps them get guys to transfer to Ohio State. Same thing with Carlos Lachlan. I mean, there's so many stories like about this. There aren't really out public stories about Ryan Day leaning on some of the other guys that were currently in the running back room. But with the way Lachlan recruits, Lachlan already had relationships with guys that were in that RB room before he got the job because he recruits them. And Lachlan will tell you, it is his job to know about the running backs around the country, those that are doing big things, or those that are in the portal, those that are in high school. It is his job to have his finger on the pulse of the running backs in college and in high school. That's his job. And when doing so, you're going to make some really good connections with guys, and those might continue after you're trying to recruit them to play football for you. And that happened. Lachlan, big. Day and Henderson and Judkins, that was a massive thing, but it also goes into Ryan Day being a player's coach. Ryan Day trusts his guys. He demands a lot from them, but also when the going gets tough, we need to make a hire, you can lean on those guys to help you get to where you currently are as a coach, and the rest is history. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show a part of your day. Remember, the setup is temporary. Dealing with a medical emergency with the family, things are getting better, a lot better than they have been, and so this is a temporary setup, temporary sound. We'll get back to the normal, regularly scheduled programming very, very soon. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. You get Locked on Buckeyes ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. head to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Basketball. You can follow me on any social media platform or jsteven07. Send every email to jsteven317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on your hump day. We'll see you next time.